Florida, Toronto, game number 2 taking place in Toronto, minus 190 for the favorites. Florida plus 160, total 6.5, heavily towards the over in this one. We saw lots of speed, and despite some weaker goals, I still think Samsonov played well, Bobrovsky played well, and we still saw some goals in game 1. Carm, what do you have for us in game 2?
So this is another interesting one, Andrew, because we talk about the Leafs series price. When this first came out and we talked about it, I think on Monday's show, the Leafs were, I think, minus 170-ish or something like that to win the series. Florida was plus 145. And I said, that 145 is just too attractive not to take. I think you have to take it. Florida has gotten better as these playoffs, as the regular season ended and the playoffs, and they knocked off the Bruins, and it wasn't a fluke knocking off the Bruins. They went into Boston and won games in Boston. They played extremely well against that Bruins team. Say what you want about the Bruins, but they knocked them off. At the end of the day, this team's playing well, and then they go into Toronto in a game which I thought could very well be a flat spot. I couldn't even get the goalie right, but I blame the media on that one. They announced Lyon, and then I left after doing our Circles show, and I got to the bar, and we just started to have a good time, and I'm watching the game, and I didn't even see that it was Bobrovsky in goal. It should be Bobrovsky in goal tonight. Listen, everyone is betting the series price right now. First of all, is the Leafs are now plus 105. So if you like the Leafs and you think they're going to win tonight, and they can get home ice back by winning 1 or 2 games in Florida, then take the Leafs. You got them at plus money instead of minus 170 before the start of this series. I'm going to tell you this, and this isn't me pounding on Leaf fans or this Leafs organization, because I've taken the Leafs a lot more times than gone against them. I think we posted those numbers during the regular season. It's almost a 9-1 margin on me being on the Leafs over the last couple of years and being against the Leafs. But why are we discounting Florida? Why are the Leafs continuing to take money here? This Florida team is playing some fantastic hockey right now. They are in form, and they played a great game against the Leafs. They deserve the win. And if the Leafs money keeps coming in, it's at 190 right now, and you're getting Florida 165. If this goes to similar to the other game where it's at minus 210, you're going to give me 175 on Florida. Why wouldn't they take it? I'll probably take them at 165. Common thought or logic or whatever dictates that it's a zigzag series. So Toronto lost game 1, they're going to win game 2. And I even said it on the previous show. I will probably take the team that loses game 1 and game 2. I'm not confident that the Leafs can win game 2. We'll see what happens tonight, but Florida has played probably one bad game in this playoffs thus far, where I think Bobrovsky got pulled. I think it was that 6-2 game. They've been in pretty much every single game. They play well to start games, especially in that first period. I'm taking Florida tonight. It's an unpopular opinion because I think the world is going to be on the Leafs. And sometimes when the world is on one side, I want to be on the other side. It's just the it's contrarian play, but I'm on Florida tonight. And I'll go to Brian.
I thought you were going to go to Brian there, but I will go to Brian for you, Carm. Brian, what are your thoughts here?
I was catching my breath, man. I was catching my breath.
I fully understand where Carmine is going with here. I didn't have anything to do with game 1 in this series. The reason being is I want a team who I know is fully focused on game 1. Toronto broke the streak for winning the first round of the playoffs. They were excited. That was their goal. That's what they wanted. Florida beats Boston. Nobody thought Boston was going to lose that early in the playoffs. So both of these teams were coming off very emotional games in which they accomplished something that a lot of people didn't think they would do, which leaves me on the sideline for game 1. And I watched that game, and although Carmine says that Florida deserved that game, and I don't have a problem with him saying it, but take a look at the expected goals for that game. Toronto 5.8, Florida 2.78. They were 3 goals better in expected goals. So the deserved to win meter over at Money Puck was 60, I believe 62%, 63%, something like that, for Toronto. So Toronto did what they were supposed to do. They just didn't win the game. Now you're getting them back home, and I agree. Everybody and their brother is going to be on Toronto here. Toronto's the team that is going to attract all the money. I think Toronto's going to win. Do I want to lay that number? No, I don't. I'm not going to lay that number. So I'll be sitting this one out. Florida impressed me in that game. They didn't have the expected goals, but they were right there with Toronto the entire time. And many times they outplayed Toronto. But Toronto now coming off of that game that they should have won at home. I think Toronto wins. Not laying that number. Maybe Florida can get off to a 1-0 lead in this game, and I can come in on Toronto and play them live. That's the way I'm looking to play it, but I'm not laying this big number here.
Brian, before Andrew jumps in here, I just got a quick question for you. Just in liking the Leafs, would you look at, and I'm not sure if you're even a big guy on team totals, so this will apply to Andrew as well too. The Leafs team total is 3.5 minus 145. Would you, with your thought process being the XG numbers from that last game and the Leafs' road to victory in this game is they're probably going to have to score goals in order to beat this Florida team that will get their own. Would you look at the team total and minus 145, or is that too juicy?
It's a little bit too juicy for me at 145. That would mean they have to score 4 goals in that regard. So, yeah, I'm still looking for Florida to take an early lead here and then come back and play Toronto on the money line. I think that's your better deal. You'll be able to get them at a little bit better price than that.
Brian, what you mentioned about being able to get Toronto live, unfortunately, I can't back you on that one because I'm taking Toronto in the first period. So I really hope you can't get Toronto live because that won't be a good sign for me. I can get Toronto minus a half goal plus the 130 there in the first period. Guys, look, when I look at this matchup, I said this on the last show and I'll say it again. Everybody thought the least focused team would be Florida after coming back after being down 3-1. And I'm sorry, but when you've got one team that hadn't made, won a round, pretty much since I was in diapers, you can't really give them respect going into round 2. I mean, the whole monkey off your back isn't a handicap, in my opinion. I think that, if anything, I think Toronto was riding more of a high. If you look at downtown Toronto and their videos, you'd think they just won their 4th straight Stanley Cup. And to me, when you look at that, this is a team you want after game 2 when the series has begun. And honestly, I really don't think Sheldon Keefe is that good of a coach. I think he's a player's coach, which is what the Maple Leafs needed. Babcock was strictly just too tough on those star players, but I don't think Keefe makes enough changes, line changes, and then when he starts doing it, he does it way too much. I think that game 2, we saw what happened last series, is a big, big game for the Maple Leafs, and it's all about those first periods. Samsonov, I'm not worried about him. The D-core, I think they played okay, and as Brian mentioned, I'm not a huge expected goals guy, but as Brian talked about, I always look at Money Puck. When it's that big of a differential, it's probably worth mentioning here on the show. So I'm happy that Brian talked about that. And for all of those reasons, I'm going to take a look at Toronto to win the first period. Again, if it's tied, I will lose this wager. But the minus a half goal in the first period plus the 130, I think Toronto responds, but I also think they respond early in this game. So give me Toronto in the first period on the puck line. I will have some props as well posted to my Twitter and for clients in this game. Should be a great one to bet on.